Good afternoon and welcome to Associated University, a group that is designed to provide supply chain management professionals with access to information on practical solutions concerning the industry's current hot topic. Today we will be discussing the practical approach to employing telematics to maximize your labor utilization and order fulfillment processes. Your presenter is Carl Nunn. Carl is currently the manager of fleet optimization at Associated. He comes to us with over 35 years of experience in the material handling industry. In his tenure, he has been responsible for managing lift truck fleets of varying sizes across multiple industries. We have scheduled 15 minutes at the end of the presentation to answer any questions you may have. If you have a question during the course of the presentation or at the end, you can simply type it in the right-hand side of your screen in the question box or tweet us at AssociatedUNIV. Following this webinar, we will also be providing all attendees a copy of this presentation. And with that, I will pass it over to Carl to get us started.
Thanks, Sherry. I appreciate everybody's time today. We're going to look at telematics from a different perspective. We're looking at it from the practical side and looking at some of the reports and questions that can be answered using this technology. I'll only be going over a brief overview of the system with you and then dive right into the information. Supply chains are the topic on everybody's conversation list, talking about how their organization fits into a supply chain for various customers that they service. Operations managers have a particularly complex link in that chain in dealing with inventories, shipping, receiving, stock management, route planning. It's a very, very intense and complicated affair in managing an operation. But yet we're expected to improve upon the processes. So looking at a definition for supply chain that I found, and I thought was very good, is supply chain management has been defined as the design, planning, execution, control, and monitoring of supply chain activities with the objective of creating net value, building a competitive infrastructure, leveraging worldwide logistics, synchronizing supply with demand, and measuring performance globally. And you'll notice that I've highlighted some of the words in this definition: design, planning, control, and monitoring to achieve the objective of creating net value. Those are some of the aspects that telematics can help you with. Some of the responsibilities with regards to the assets: making process improvements, increasing productivity, reducing risk in the workplace, including reducing the damage to both products and racks in your warehouse. Instill driver accountability, and realize labor savings. And these are difficult to obtain in an operation unless you have some assistance, and telematics can offer that to you. What's the common denominator? The forklifts. In most applications, the forklifts touch both raw materials, sub-assemblies, finished goods, and packaged products in your operation. By using telematics on the forklift trucks, it would provide you an opportunity to gain visibility of your operation and the efficiencies of some of your most costly assets and resources, that being labor costs and forklifts. What I'd like to do is focus in on 6 questions that I thought the audience might find useful. And what I'd like you to do is to ask yourself the question, can you answer these 6 questions for your operation? The first being, how many trucks do I truly need in my operation? Just skipping ahead a little bit, how many operators does it take to pick my orders in a year? Who are my top 3 operators? Is utilization of my forklifts balanced across my fleet, or am I overusing a truck while others sit idle in the corner? Am I getting the value out of my planned maintenance program, or am I wasting money? Pardon me. Who's causing the damage to my products and my racks in my warehouse? These are questions that I think everybody could benefit from knowing the answers to. And what I like to do is start with the first. How many trucks do I truly need in my operation? What you see on the screen is a report from a telematics software program. It's web-based. And what I'd like to do is just take a few minutes to go over its structure, and you'll find that it's common to all the following slides. Across the top, we have choices of a dashboard that gives you an overview or a quick look at what's happening in your warehouse. This particular choice gives you the the tracking software for your maintenance costs. You can see this is highlighted right now, and this is the metrics tab, and it's showing us utilization of the trucks. And it's just one report of the metrics tab. There's a drop down. Impacts, checklist verification, service code alerts, and there's a few more smaller choices. Along the left column here, you have a choice to select a date range. You can put in a start date and use one of these buttons to automatically populate the second date range if you'd like, or you can manually put them in. Right now we're looking at a 6-month period, and we're looking at the average vehicles usage by hour. If you look at the report, we have a 24-hour day, and it's averaging the number of vehicles over the last 6 months that were on the floor at, say, 8 a.m. or 2 a.m. When you hover your mouse over a point, as I did on this particular screenshot, you can see a dialog box pop up. And it's telling us this top line is the reach truck curve. And at 8 a.m. in the morning, we averaged 30% of the fleet on the floor. The utilization was almost 9 trucks out of 30. And again, this is 6 months worth of data. And over 6 months, the highest point of usage was at 8 a.m., and we only got 9 of them on the floor. Here's an opportunity to look at our reach truck fleet and make some changes. I'd like to take you back to the filter quickly and show you that we are indeed talking about vehicles and average. These are the type of trucks available, and it tells you the number of them. Counterbalances are 6, order pickers 1, pallet trucks are 9. Here's the reach trucks for 30, and the swing reach is 4. So we can see that the 30 marries up with our dialogue. We also have a color-coordinated legend at the bottom, and we have 2 facilities with trucks in them, 180 and south. There's 24 at 180 and south for 26. So what we could do is uncheck the boxes and limit our view of this data to a very specific truck type or a location, for instance. We could drill down in it. Lastly, we can automate the report. If we like this particular report, we can have it sent to us via email automatically. We could take an image and put it in a PowerPoint for a presentation we want to give our management. We can do a PDF so we can email it easier, or we can actually download it as a comma delimited file and put it in Excel. It's the data behind the graph that allow us to do further analysis of it. But here, do I truly need, how many trucks do I truly need in my operation? Again, we're showing our truck types. We're filterable and by location. And knowing exactly what I used allows to confidently add a reasonable buffer and adjust my fleet size, potentially reducing my capital requirements. In this example, we saw they're really using 9 on the floor. If you bump that to 15 even, you would reduce your fleet by 50%. If reductions are called for, could I target my oldest trucks, which are costing the most, to repair and reduce my maintenance budget? So you got the ancillary benefit of reducing maintenance costs by getting rid of some of your oldest truck fleet when you're reducing that fleet of reach trucks. Know the best times to schedule maintenance to reduce effects on operation, and factually know if you need rentals in the future on your operation. Remember, we can use the date range to pick out a month, a quarter, a year to find out where our peaks are. We can also use that particular report to tell us, how many trucks I'm actually using to reduce the size, which reduces our maintenance costs on the full maintenance and scheduled maintenance contracts we might have, and also the repairs that we do on the trucks that we're not using very much or very often. The second question, how many operators does it take to pick my orders? So we're swinging the pendulum now to the operators. And what we have is the same format of the report with the same 24-hour period, but now what we're doing is we're counting the operators that were on the floor at a particular time. In this example, we have 3 shifts. The shift starts at 8 a.m. And goes 8 hours, and then we have a second and a third shift in the mornings. You can see most of the orders are being pulled during the day shift. You can clearly see a break period and a lunch period, but knowing the number of operators that you employ in your operation on a certain shift, you can see how many operators are actually using your equipment or out picking orders. on the equipment to get a handle on where you're at. What this offers you is knowing exactly the staff that you used and allows me to confidently add a reasonable buffer and adjust the staff size. Again, you can do what-if analysis looking at a monthly, daily, weekly, quarterly view of what operators are on the floor doing the work. If it seems particularly low because it's only tied to the truck use, you can go on the floor and test it and see if, in fact, the reporting marries what you're seeing in your own warehouse at the time, where those other operators may be. If reductions are called for, you can actually identify your hardest workers because some of the other reports identify those workers, and that's the next graph we'll look at to see who's doing the most and how it is in relation to the ones not offering their best efforts. Make sure raises go to the individuals contributing to the most of the organization. Let's face it, when people are recognized for hard work, morale goes up. And it also incites others that if they work hard as well, they might take advantage of some of those benefits. So let's identify the top 3 operators that we have from that data set. And here what we're looking at is metrics again, and we're in an operator survey for consolidated metrics. And what we're looking at that's different this time are the hours on the trucks. We have login hours in blue, deadman in black, travel hours in green, and I would say a reddish-orange lift hours. So what we're doing is a little bit different here. We can sort by whichever one of those hour meters we choose, and I did the deadman because that suggests that somebody is on the truck, and I sorted by it, and you can see the descending order, the deadman being black, the descending order of these black bars. The names of the operators are underneath, and in looking at it, don't look at the deadman. That just means they were standing on a truck. I would look at the travel and lift hours. And the ones with the largest travel hours are in the front. There's an unassigned badge, and then there's these 3 individuals. And then it goes downwards. Excuse me. And the question I would have is, looking at it, if the operators with the most travel and lift hours are identified, what are these operators with no lift hours doing on the trucks? Perhaps the truck's lift circuit isn't being monitored on certain types of trucks, or perhaps they're just driving around the warehouse. But this gives you full visibility of what's going on. We changed the date range to be a month here. You can do a week, you can do a day, and you can include weekends or exclude them. So you can get a practical version of this sent to you automatically on a daily or a weekly basis to get a sense of who's out there getting the job done for you. In highlighting one of the individuals here in the middle, you can see that a dialog came up, gives you the name, the number of login hours they logged into trucks, and that's cumulative because we have all the different types of trucks checked. The key hours, the deadman hours, the travel hours, the lift hours, and the idle hours. Inactivity percentage, and unoccupied hours. In other words, they logged in and walked away from the truck. And that's important because maybe they're not driving the truck to the location. They're walking up and down the aisle, and they're taking longer to pick the orders that you're looking for them to pick. So who are the top 3 operators? Being able to recognize and acknowledge those that contribute the most of the team's performance builds morale and helps with employee retention. Performance reviews now can be done with individuals' charts and tables, enhancing an employee's understanding for areas of improvement. And individuals who offer substandard efforts can no longer hide in the operation because it's impossible to see them without a telematics system. The 4th question I thought would be interesting is utilization balanced across my fleet, or am I overusing a truck while others sit? Now remember, in most cases when we put these systems on, we see that we have more trucks than they're actually being used. And the question is, are the operators going to the same 30% of trucks, or are they putting their attention balanced across the fleet? And it's been our experience that often they use the same truck. They have a favorite. So we did a little bit different. We're still in metrics. we did a vehicle survey consolidated metrics this time, and that's a choice from the drop-down. And we did a 6-month range just to get a sense of it. And we're again getting hours of dead man travel and lift. We've chosen just the reach truck in this case, and we've chosen one location that has 10 of them. And what you see in this particular sort scheme is that we are using 3 of the trucks pretty extensively. And after that, the usage goes down. With the one at the lowest end showing dead man hours of 443, where on the high end, we're closer to 900. So that's about a 50%, 60% differential. Why is that important? Because it's likely that planned maintenance is scheduled on a calendar basis for all these trucks at the same time, where when you're looking at 250 hours or 500 hours between PMs, you might need one, or if it's 250 hours, maybe every other month. Here you could go 3 or 4 months between, and you're wasting money. So dead man hours on vehicle 303 is 40% of the hours of 301. So is utilization balance across my fleet? Can you answer that question about your fleet? Not overworking your fleet reduces wear and tear and improves reliability. Let's face it, your best operators have a favorite truck. If they go to it, put the most hours on it, they're wearing those trucks out, and they're going to break down more often. And the trucks that your operators rely on, your best operators, are going to not be as reliable. Maintenance costs often are significantly reduced if balance use is implemented. Basically, it's not just the wear and tear that plays into the maintenance cost. It's also the fact that you're often paying too much for a full maintenance contract, or you're over PMing your fleet because it doesn't justify it on some of the trucks where it does on the others. It's also a major contributor to wasted funds with regard to those contracts. The 5th question I wanted to cover today: am I getting the value out of my planned maintenance program, or am I wasting money? A planned maintenance program is designed to adjust, lubricate, clean, and catch the problems in the early hours where they're the least expensive to repair. An example would be brushes in a motor versus letting those brushes go to the point that it takes the motor out and it costs much more to replace the motor. So that's what an effective PM program offers your organization. And what we have here is we're looking at the checklists. And I've gone back to using a wider calendar frame of 9 months. It's 9.5 months actually. And I've chosen all the trucks in all the locations. And what this tells you is if operators do a checklist and everything on the truck is fine, it passes. And that's this line that you see on the graph. What's interesting here is toward the end of January, matter of fact it was January 27th when I highlight the point, 84% of the trucks passed that were a checklist was performed on. And 9 timed out and failed. So the question I had was, if PMs were performed in mid to late January, this drop in checklist passes suggests an issues with your PM. Now you could obviously filter this down to type of truck, by location, and see it very clearly for your own operation. But the reality is, when the PMs aren't done properly and the operators are doing their checklist and failing components that weren't checked on the PM, this is a great barometer. You can see what's going on. You can see a little activity here as well. If you were to filter this down, it would become more obvious what site and what trucks were affected by it. So quality PMs are the most important program to ensure reliability and low maintenance costs. It truly is, if you think about it. Adjust, lubricate, clean, and catch problems in early hours. If you do those things, your trucks will last a long time with little problem and little repair. But if they're not done correctly, it's just a pure waste of money. And it's important for you to get the value on that program. Your operator checklist can now serve a secondary purpose beyond safety, and help you manage your PM contracts as well. And who's causing the damage to my products and my racks and my operation? Just about every warehouse over the last 30 plus years that I've been in this industry and walked through have skids with damaged product on it and rack that's visibly damaged by forklifts. And the question is, who's doing that? With the number of operators you have in your facilities doing the work at the various points in your operation, it's impossible to know unless you have a telematics system helping you. Here's a graph using the impact, and it's the survey of operators. This is just one of the reports under impact. And I've just highlighted this first column here. The operator is Kevin. He's had 180 impacts. No, at 180, 95 impacts. Total dead man hours, 110 hours. His impact per dead man hour is 0.86. And again, this is for 6 months worth of use. So Kevin has had 95 impacts in your warehouse over the last 6 months and averages an impact every 69 minutes he drives a truck. This is important information. This is information that you couldn't easily gather if you had a clipboard and followed Kevin on a truck. It also puts it in relation to the others in your warehouse. You also have this opportunity to reward the safe operators in your warehouse on this end of the spectrum. You can filter this by truck in case some of your trucks are not being as reliable as you would like, just to see if impacts are affecting the reliability of your equipment, and know by operator who is driving that piece of equipment. You can do it by location and compare locations. What I did is I selected one location here, but all the trucks to put this together. So we're looking at one location for 6 months with all the trucks reporting. But you can filter this down to whatever you want. And again, this could be automated and sent to your inbox so you have it every week. You could post it on a board outside your office so everybody can see it and drive your improvement that way. Identifying the 20% of operators in Pareto's Law who's causing 80% of your damage, and that's truly what you'll see when you do this. You can very quickly reduce your product damage. You can very quickly reduce the rack damage and make your operation a lot safer. You can use the report as a report card to verify behavior has changed after counseling. So you have identified Kevin as being one of the problems in your warehouse. You sit down with Kevin and explain to him the importance of safe driving habits and the things he needs to change to improve his performance for you. The question is, after he leaves your office, is he going to do the right thing? Well, with these reports, you can tell if Kevin is doing the right thing now, and if not, you can bring Kevin back in to re-counsel him. You can reward the safe drivers and improve morale because the drivers know who's doing the damage out there. And recognition of the good drivers is an important aspect, and probably more important than dealing with the bad players. One of the aspects of telematics that's really coming to the forefront that I wanted to share with you today in those basic 6 questions and the things you can do to really improve your operation on an ongoing basis, they're actually taking this technology a little bit further, and they're integrating with labor management systems. So what is a labor management system? And perhaps some of you are using them, others might not, so I'd like just to take a moment and talk about the basics. A labor management system is what is a program for tracking the performance and utilization of your hourly associates from clock in to clock out. It literally is telematics, if you will, on the associates. Manual entries are used and completed for those tasks that are not systematic, that can't be reported using technology. So as you can see in the graphic here, start of the shift and punch in is clocked in. There might be one activity between 9:43 and 10 o'clock that they'll have to fill out on a clipboard. And again, from 11:40 to 11:52, that would be reported separately. But everything else is monitored by systems within the warehouse. And it gives you visibility to the entire workforce. And what we're seeing is integration from your warehouse management system with the orders that they're picking, your time clock for both clock in and clock out, and now with telematics. And it's filling that gap that you didn't know about, the travel distance, the travel time, what equipment they're using, and the functions that they're using when they do it. Most labor management systems predict the distance that needs to be traveled, and what happens is they find that the results are very different from what they predicted, and they want to know why. Telematics offers them that information by giving the distance and the time it took to get there. And that lets them coordinate why their standard is either off or the performance of the employee is off. So it fills in a black hole for them quite nicely. And our partner in labor management easily integrates to those multiple systems for a complete data capture, which makes for very interesting reporting. They use this on a third-party logistics firm. And what they found was 1,500 hours per month of underutilized equipment. The trucks are utilized only 36% of the time that they're on the floor. So that allowed them to adjust not only their equipment but their employees to find savings. They also took it and they found that with this technology they were able to go to a P&L type format and look at how cases were being picked. Cases were to be picked with the pallet jacks, but what they found was the employees were choosing to use high reach trucks to do the case picking. And that's much more costly, as you can see by this graphic. It's 50 cents a case versus the double pallet jack, which is 10 cents or 11 cents a case, or a single pallet jack, which is 91 cents per case. So they were able to identify all this because they had telematics on their equipment telling them which trucks they were using to do this case picking. And they had significant savings, and they were able to reduce their costs to such a point that they're actually implementing these systems across the country. Again, they found that the most costly equipment type was being used against management's wishes. They were using the poor equipment used for the function, and it was used more than any other type of equipment. So that's our presentation, and we were wondering if you had any questions.
Okay, Carl, thank you. So as I said at the beginning of the presentation, if you have any questions, you can type them in the question box at the lower right-hand side of your screen. You can also tweet us any of your questions at AssociatedUNIV. So during the presentation, we have had a few questions come in. The first question is, what are some of the other advantages a telematics system can provide a user besides reports?
Well, we focused on 6 questions and only 6 reports. There are a lot of other reports available on that software to take advantage of. But what I'd like to do is take it in a different direction in that the system is capable of sending you either a text message or an email when events occur in the workplace. For instance, when an impact occurs of a certain level or greater, you can have an email or text message alert your phone, your cell phone, and you could be made aware of events in your warehouse without even being out there when it occurred. Or you can also have your maintenance department be aware that a checklist question, say for instance brakes, which more than likely puts the truck on the sidelines because you don't want it on the floor with bad brakes. It can also send a text message or an email message to your maintenance department so they know that one of their objectives that morning is to replace the brakes on that piece of equipment to get it back on the floor. And finally, depending upon the choices of telematics hardware you choose, you can actually do text messaging to the operators on the floor. So they can answer back in a yes-no format, but you can actually type a short text message to their screen. What happens is the device flashes a red light at them, and it doesn't show the message until they stop the vehicle off to the side before it'll display it. So for instance, if you want everybody to start doing the receiving work or the put away work You can send a broadcast text message out to the individuals responsible for that. Their screens will flash. They'll pull to the side, get the message, and they can respond yes or no to that, and you'll know who's heard the message. Now, if a operator chooses to ignore your message, and they think if they just jump off the truck and go to a different truck, they've effectively ignored your message, they're wrong. Because what winds up happening is, as they log off the first truck, they log on to the second truck, the message follows them. So those are some of the other aspects these systems can offer you.
Thank you. Another question that came in is, can you recommend a telematics system?
Well, there are a lot of them out there. Manufacturers are getting involved in telematics now. There are single source providers out there that have very good sources. What I would suggest is involve yourself with somebody who can help you identify what your objectives and goals are for the long term. Perhaps you're not interested in some of these features today, but you might be 5 years down the road. One of the telematic offerings is vision software, where you can actually load a layout of your operation into a computer, computer drawing, and you can actually have the system tell you where the trucks are, where the impacts occurred, that sort of thing. Of course, there is some money involved with that, but knowing that you want to do that, say in the next 7 years, is an important decision to make before you choose a particular provider. And again, there's a lot of good ones out there, and I would recommend you compare a few of them to find out which meets your needs.
Thank you. And it looks like we have one final question that came in. Are the reports you showed us the extent of what a telematics system can provide me?
No, Sherry, the reports I used in this presentation scratched the surface. I realize the reports can be dry, and I wanted to limit it to 6 questions, which might have been a little bit more than we should have had, but 6 questions I thought the audience would find interesting. But there's a lot more reporting available. And one of the things that you should consider when you're considering a telematics provider is, do they offer support and consulting? There's a lot of big data here, and you all probably have jobs that keep you very busy currently. For the first year, you might want to consider using the consultative services offered by some of the telematics providers and help you analyze your data and show you where your opportunities are. Obviously, you put the system in, you're going to require a few months to gather data, and after that period, they can sit down after looking at your data and show you the reports you might be interested in. And you can narrow it down. If they show you 8 reports or 10 reports, you can narrow it down to the 3 most critical for yourself, and they can help you understand what your opportunities are to not only pay for the system, but take advantage of the cost savings that the system will provide you.
Great, and thank you for presenting this material today, Carl. I would also like to thank everyone who joined us today. We hope you found this information to be relevant and valuable to your organization. Following this webinar, we will be sending you a copy of today's presentation and a very short survey about today's webinar. We ask that you take a few minutes to let us know what you thought and offer any feedback on topics you would like to see included in future Associated University webinars. Additionally, if you have any other questions about telematics or other supply chain topics, please tweet us at Associated UNIV. Thank you and have a great day.